Greetings! Just enjoying one of my favourite pastimes, pretending to read a book while doom-scrolling our social media hellscape. Hey, why don't we treat ourselves with a short break from reading the unfathomable horrors and get involved ourselves? Hey, I don't agree with you, and because of this, I'm going to say something unreasonable. You're probably the sort of person who puts the cream before the jam on a scone. No, that's not harsh enough. You're probably the sort of person who doesn't do the little wave when I let them into traffic. No, I can be harsher. All right, here we go. You probably are a you but you have a nice hat. Was that too harsh? I guess the fact that it was beeped meant it was just right. And now we wait. For me to ever have the courage to be confrontational online, my laptop was off. I just wanted to see what it felt like. I feel alive for the first time. Yuck. Hi there, I'm Beck Petratus and I'm here to answer all your burning media questions. Sort of like an agony aunt who doesn't know about relationships, but is both in agony and an aunt. And today's question comes to us from my dear nephew. Isn't that fitting? I love to express myself online, but some people don't appreciate my views. Every so often, the subject of my opinions will threaten legal action, which seems bad. Can I get in trouble for what I say about people? Anyway, up the boys! My nephew does bring up some good points, the upward trajectory of the boys, and the question of why some people and organisations may be able to take you to court for what you say online. And that is because of defamation! So what is defamation, and why do I live in constant fear of it? No, it's not just my generalised anxiety disorder. There can be real-world ramifications for things that you say online. According to arts law, defamation is a communication from one person to at least one other that harms the reputations of an identifiable third person where the communicator has no legal defence. Put super simply, if you talk shit about someone to someone else, you can get hit with a lawsuit. Let's break down the 3 things needed for a defamation action to go forward. Think of it as a forbidden checklist you don't want to tick. 1, that you publish the defamatory thing to a third person. That published part is important. It's written, said, or shown in an image, and whatever platform it's published on could also get in trouble. 2, that the person accusing you of defamation is clearly identified. This can be by name, but using a sneaky false name won't save you if it's obvious who you're talking about. You can't just call Greg Freg and get away with it. Freg is a better name though. 3, it's got to be defamatory, meaning if the thing you said harms the reputation of the other, holds them to ridicule, or leads others to shun, you might be in trouble. And it's not just individuals getting in on the fun. Corporations can sue for defamation if they're a non-profit or employ less than 10 people. So that local fish and chip shop can fry you up like one of those Mars bars that even I'm not into. If you read something defamatory about yourself online, you can sue in your home state. It doesn't matter if the content is hosted somewhere else. In Facebook's case, the pits of hell. There are time limits though. You've got to get started within 12 months of publication. But there is also the multiple publications rule, where publication of defamatory material on the internet occurs each time an internet article is downloaded and comprehended by a reader, effectively resetting the limitation period. If your mouth isn't wide open just hearing me read that sentence, you've probably got a lot more interesting things going on in your life. But it's worth pointing out the reforms are going on throughout Australia to change this rule. So, let's say you've said something about a particularly litigious person online and surprise, their lawyers have got in touch. It's best then to offer to make amends. This can resolve the dispute through publishing a correction or making an apology. But if your olive branch is slapped down like the fancy twig it is, here are some legal defences for defamation that you could use. Honest opinion. If you're just sharing your genuine opinion, then that's a potential defence, provided it's a matter of the public interest and your opinion is based on facts. Like if you left a review saying a fish and chip shop's deep-fried Mars bar was bad and you hold that opinion honestly. Right in your guts. Be careful though, when journalists use this defence, it's said to fail more often than it succeeds. Truth. If you can prove that what you've said is true, then there's a good chance you'll be fine. So keep your receipts, as the kids say. God, I hope the kids still say that. I'm old. Qualified privilege. This only applies in specific relationships where you have a duty to say something that might be defamatory to another person with an interest in receiving that information. This could be a boss sending off a reference, a police inquiry, or a credit agency. I'm sure my credit agency only has wonderful things to say about me. I love you, credit card. Innocent dissemination. It is possible you'd be off the hook if you just shared a defamatory comment made by someone else if you didn't know it was defamatory. It can be pretty tricky to use this as a defence though, particularly when online platforms are involved. Triviality. If you can prove that what you said was just a bit of frivolity and that didn't hurt that person's reputation, you can use this as a defence. If a trial would just be a waste of everyone's time and money, the courts may decide it shouldn't go ahead. Unless you're unlucky enough to get Judge Judy. Nothing's too trivial for her. And finally, other defences, which are scrolling past the screen right now. To be honest, I don't think they will apply to you or me. They're pretty specific. So those are some potential defences, but if none of those work out, you might need to pay up. Let's see what the person suing you could win.
That's right. The person suing you could win compensation for their losses. But there's a cap for non-economic damages around $400,000, which is adjusted annually. That's a lot of clams.
But let's give you an example. This is my neighbour, Michelle.
Hello!
We're both active members of the Facebook group for our apartment building.
I love to offer up some spare tomatoes when I've grown too many.
Yes.
And look out for any lost dogs.
Oh, of course.
And removing posts that breach the explicit posting guidelines established in the About section of the group. Come on, people!
So I'm going to write in this Facebook group that Michelle goes to our local trampoline park and spits inside kids' shoes.
But I would never do that to Bounce-topia.
Oh, it's just an example. This isn't real.
Is this because I'm really good at making spit? That's not suspicious. I'm just talented, okay? Just jealous because I can do this.
Maybe I'll add a little bit more to the post. I'll say, I have also seen Michelle down at the local Spend Less shoes, testing whether it's waterproof inside the gumboots. Michelle is a dirty cereal shoe spitter.
I'm sorry, that's not what I...
Once again, it's not real, Michelle. I just thought it would be fun to see you today and I could use you as an example.
How dare you invite me on your show and then do this to me? You saying that out loud just then to them, I'm going to sue you for defamation.
That's the spirit? Oh, now she's blooming getting it. Who are you on the phone to?
Hello, my lawyer? Yeah, get your checkbook. Mama's getting a new pair of shoes. No, not to spit in. How did you hear that? How is everybody hearing about this?
Well, that all seems pretty worrying. Maybe we should talk to a defamation lawyer. So, defamation lawyer from Saniki Lawyers, Jonathan Shen. How worried should someone be about getting hit with a defamation case for things they say online?
Well, you certainly have to be very careful. You know, the word publication is defined very broadly in the defamation laws, which capture all sorts of publications, including newspaper publications, TV publications, and, as you said, online publications. And what people don't realise is that anything you say is treated as a publication and is subject to the defamation laws. So you do have to be careful.
How much can you rely on the range of defamation defences?
Well, certainly there are many defences that are available, and they are an important part of the defamation law. The main defences would be justification, also known as truth. If you prove that what you've said is substantially true, then that's actually a complete defence, but you do have to prove that. There's also defences of honest opinion, qualified privilege, to name a few, but they do have certain elements that you have to satisfy before you're able to establish those defences. So while they are available, to even engage in that sort of defamation dispute, it does become costly and time-consuming and stressful as well. So although you can rely on them, to even engage in that dispute is something you might want to avoid in the first place.
What's it like to experience a defamation case firsthand? I imagine it's not like a super pleasant experience.
No, it's certainly not a leisurely activity. Definitely when we do act for publishers or people who've been hit with letters alleging that they've said something defamatory, often they'll claim an amount of damages as well. Recently we had a client that was hit with a concerned notice asking for $200,000 in damages, and she was saying, well, do I have to sell my house now? Well, that claim fortunately didn't have much merit, and we were able to advise them. But it is a scary thing and it is stressful. Fortunately, most claims do settle before it even reaches the courts. But in other cases, if you can't resolve it and it does go to court, those matters can be drawn out. You'd expect it to be drawn out for about 2 years until you get to a trial.
What do you think about the defamation reforms?
And the defamation laws haven't been reformed since about 2005. The Defamation Act was passed, did commence in 2005. These reforms that are happening this year, which are set to commence, I think, the 1st of July or shortly after, depending on what state you're in, have been widely considered as being well overdue. Because the old laws, they weren't designed to capture social media, the digital age. They're really designed for newspapers and things like that. So, these days where things can go viral very easily, or, there's people make comments, Facebook comments, or leave Google reviews, very, very easily. We see a lot of cases where a lot of the disputes are really minor and more based on, petty disputes rather than actual serious defamatory statements. So in those situations, I think the serious harm threshold as a new element of the cause of action of defamation is going to weed out a lot of those minor claims.
Which seems good because do you think sometimes the defamation laws are used to sort of silence people? Because there are, of course, proper disputes and things that do happen that do need to be sorted out, but every so often there's someone will start a defamation case, it seems like, to stop just some sort of dissent.
Certainly, we've seen people try to use the defamation laws to silence people. Very recently, actually, an example is we had a client come to us and she'd left a Google review. She was hit with a concerns notice, and while the review was her genuine thoughts, and it was just unfavourable to the business owner, and we saw that as an attempt to basically keep that Google review page clean and all 5-star. And as I mentioned, even if you do have merit, and even if you do have available defences, as a publisher, it can be very costly to engage in that dispute, and often it ends up settling on the basis that that post is removed, or that basis that an apology is published in place of that post. So certainly people do use it as a means of trying to silence unfavourable comments, but as mentioned, that serious harm threshold is going to go some way in tilting the balance back in favour of freedom of speech.
Yes, hopefully. In the context of the Me Too movement, how concerned should genuine victims of abuse be about defamation laws when it comes to speaking out?
Well, I think that's a tricky question in terms of if someone is in that position, there's competing things to balance. On one hand, there is value in telling the story and public interest, I guess, in having that story heard. But on the other hand, the fact that there is public interest in hearing that story doesn't necessarily negate the effects of the defamation laws. They still apply to any publication, including that sort of publication, that sort of story being shared. So you do have to be careful. You'd want to make sure that if you are going to rely on any defences, that all the elements of those defences are established. And it's especially difficult in this situation because one of the main defences, defence of truth, and the burden of proof is on the defendant to establish that defence, and that puts somebody in a difficult position.
Thanks very much for speaking to us, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that was a really interesting chat. Let's talk a bit more about the potential of defamation being used to silence people. MEAA Media Federal President Marcus Strom has called the defamation system unworkable, saying that current laws inhibit the public's right to know rather than guaranteeing fairness, leaving journalists fighting for months or even years through expensive cases. A press freedom survey conducted by the MEAA also found that almost a quarter of respondents had a news story shut down out of fears of defamation action. Damages from these cases can be massive, and with ever-shrinking budgets in newsrooms, the fears of legal action are real. And this obviously doesn't just impact newsrooms. Associate Professor of Law Karen O'Connell cites that recent big defamation cases involving sexual harassment allegations can only further entrench public perceptions of the risks of speaking up. And that's particularly worrying when the Australian Human Rights Commission found that when it comes to sexual harassment in the workplace, fewer than 1 in 5 people had made a formal report or complaint. Senior journalism lecturer Louisa Lim summarises well the fears people may feel about the potential weaponisation of defamation laws, stating that individuals could wield the heightened threats of lawsuits as a cudgel to silence reporting about their activities. And while reform is ongoing, senior law lecturer Michael Douglas is not convinced that the latest provisions will be any sort of revolution. Who would have thought defamation wouldn't be a cheery subject? Me, I thought that. But it's important to know what's going on, I guess. Oh. It's an email from my lawyer. Wait, Michelle actually sued me? Well, this will be going on the group chat. All right, how much is this going to cost me? Wait, I won? How? Oh, there's a video attachment. Right. Okay, what? Huh? Okay, this is a video of Michelle spitting in a shoe. I was right. My lawyer said that the courthouse was full of wet shoes. Apparently Michelle made my lawyer's Louis Vuittons into Ooey Vuittons. Well, at least this defamation case had a happy ending. Wait. Those are my shoes. Michelle spat in my shoes. Oh, God damn it, and I'm not even wearing socks. So what did we learn? Defamation law can impact you, and it's not by any means a perfect system, but reform is being done. On your online travels, be conscious of the fact that the things you say online could end up costing you both time and money. And this was just a very general explanation of how defamation laws work in Australia. It varies state to state and is subject to change. I am not a lawyer, so please go seek actual legal advice if you're facing anything I've talked about. As always, don't believe what you've read without reading it twice, and even then, read it again. Okay, that is kind of fun.